What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. What started out as a pet project has blossomed into a whole video. The idea being that what I want to share with you today is a full review of every single vehicle in Cyberpunk 2077, rating each one of these and essentially telling you which one of them are worth you spending your money on and which ones aren't. Now first things first, I think primarily your choice for vehicle in Cyberpunk 2077 oftentimes comes down to an aesthetic choice. That makes a lot of sense because a lot of the vehicles in the game drive at a similar speed and kind of like handle in a similar way. So it really does only come down to what the vehicle looks like and if it fits the look you're looking for, and also sometimes what it sounds like, because some of the vehicle sounds are, a lot better than the other ones. That being said, there clearly are some vehicles in Cyberpunk 2077 which are better than the others, either from a top speed perspective, an acceleration perspective, a handling perspective, or the fact that it might have weapons on it mounted which allow you to do some awesome car to car combat with that. So nonetheless, I will share all of this information with you in this video. If that sounds like something you'd enjoy, then hold on. As for the test itself, basically what I ended up doing is choosing this little stretch of highway and road just outside Night City over here. So what we're doing is we're starting over at the Sunset Motel and we're essentially trying to race over as fast as possible to this intersection here. Now the reason why I chose that is for several reasons actually, which will make a little bit more sense as I explain it. First and foremost, it is exactly 1 kilometer away from this position, so it gives us a nice, easily measurable sort of distance and metric. Now the idea being that I start right over that machine over there and I try to race there as fast as possible while I actually follow the road. I try to go as fast as I can here, and then I cross over into this little side road here. This oftentimes lets me test to see if the vehicle has any kind of weird little slide out thing when it's at a relative speed, which some of them actually do, which obviously is bad handling. And then that little jump that I did back there over the train tracks also sometimes lets you see whether the vehicle has any weird shit when it lands after catching some air, which once again is not good handling. And then as we get to this point here, right next to that green machine there is where I terminate my speed test and I measure the time that it took to get from point A to point B. I also do still let the test run at this point in time because I'd like to see if I can get a top speed indicator as well. And going downhill there also does help you just give a little bit of an indication when the engine runs free and it runs at its max speed. As for what data I collect from this run, first and foremost, of course, we have the name of the vehicle that I'm testing, then the time that it took to complete that 1 kilometer dash from point A to point B, from standing completely still, then also the top speed that I was able to attain during that 1 kilometer dash, and then in brackets behind it, or rather following that number, the top speed that I was able to attain in that little back part there. Oftentimes, if you see a big difference between these two, it simply means that the vehicle has a better acceleration in some cases than others, and it's able to attain its top speed quicker, whereas some ones, like you'll see in the test itself, are actually only able to get that top speed once they are going downhill, which indicates a slightly weaker engine. The second last metric that I have here is handling, and this is by far the most subjective one I think out of these ones, because good handling for me might not be good handling for someone else. Nonetheless, I tried to attach a grading system of A to C here, A of course being the best and C being the worst. And like for example, I personally like the handling of the Hoon, which is of course the Ken Block car that was added as a DLC and a homage to the famous personality that unfortunately died in 2023. But some other players I've seen, or some people have commented and said that the ass is everywhere and it's extremely difficult to control. So be that as it may, nonetheless, if I do rate something as A, generally speaking, it means that the car performs extremely tight. It's really good at turns. It's really precise when you do handbrake turns, and it doesn't do any weird shit like slide out on turns too much or land funny when you catch a little bit of air of it, which some of the vehicles, as mentioned before, clearly do. And then last but not least, I also do just mention if the vehicle has any hardpoint weapons on it. So vehicles can either come with no weapons, they can come with guns on them, or they can come with guns and rockets. Now there's a lot more of these that have been added since patch 1.0, the original Cyberpunk 2077, and a few more of these were added with Phantom Liberty. So this is something that can be a fantastic addition to a vehicle. You don't always get the chance to use these, but they are super flashy, and it can, really simplify certain missions if you can show up with a car that's packing some serious fucking heat, and you can essentially just get rid of anybody that's in a vehicle around you before you disembark the vehicle and make some combat. So without any further ado, let's go on and get to some of the results. So we're going to start with the bad shit first, and we're going to work our way to the better. So the first 3 cars I'm going to show you are what I consider to be the 3 worst vehicles in the game, bar none. We're going to do them 3, 2, 1, peeking at the worst car in the game. But number 3 on this list is the Colby Barghast. Now, this thing kind of like looks as if the Ghostbuster van and a can of black shoe polish had sex. It kind of looks cool on the inside and everything, and that's pretty much where it stops. Once you take off with this thing, you realize that you are in fact driving a fucking coffin with wheels strapped to it. It has terrible acceleration. Of course, it has no weapons on it, so that doesn't even make up for it. And as you slowly but surely coast down the highway here, you can see it even has this weird little slide when you turn. I barely make enough speed that I can even clear the train track instead of jumping it. And yeah, you kind of like just feel as if you are progressively growing older as you are driving up this hill towards the end line here, which just cannot come fast enough. I only prepared about 40 seconds worth of dialogue for this test, and we've already exceeded that. But finally, we do go ahead and cross the line there, and this is the Colby Barghast, the 3rd worst vehicle for me in the game by far. Next up in the 2nd worst slot for any vehicle in the game is the Tanishi T400. Which answers a very important question that must have come across all of our minds at some point in our lives. That is, what happens when you strap an engine to a doorstop? Now, as you imagine, the results are basically that it does nothing, and that is what this car is, a big fat load of nothing. It has really bad acceleration, and as you can see, you'll most likely, yeah, it's got like a little bit of slide on it as we go around the corner there. That was with minimal curving from my side, because if you even just try to turn this car a little bit more than 5 degrees at a time, it will slide out on your ass. In fact, come to think of it, this car very much looks like a clown car without all the fun that comes with the clown car and the dudes with makeup. But that being said, it does eventually crawl its ass across the finish line here, and then we can also just see if it tops out on any higher of a max speed. The answer is absolutely no, and that is why the Tanishi T400 is the 2nd worst car in the entire game. And that then brings us on to what I consider to be the worst vehicle in Cyberpunk 2077, easily by a land mile, and that is the Supron Trail Bruiser. The only thing this is going to be bruising is your bank account. So basically what we can do is we can walk on over to it and get into it, which, trust me, is the most exciting part of this. But as you start to pull away, you realize that this has the worst acceleration that you've ever seen in any vehicle in any game across all history. Now, I will mention though that this car has kind of like a highlight, but in a way it's also a low light, and let me explain. As you can see there, terrible turning angle, no speed to get over this train track. But as I mentioned, the highlight here being that this vehicle actually does come with guns and rockets. But as mentioned, every single positive thing in this situation in this vehicle also comes with a negative. The negative here being that you cannot use those guns and rockets on yourself to kill yourself to keep you from having to drive this vehicle. Nonetheless, we do eventually reach the finish line here, and as you can see, it also does not do itself any favors with increasing its speed or anything like that. Now, I just came to think of something, and that is that first initial part where we actually run up to the turn, I'm fairly certain that I could probably hit that on foot faster than I was able to do it with that vehicle. So let's just go ahead and test that quickly. I'm going to start at the same place. I'm going to run. I even just fucked up there. We're just going to go fast. And I'm just trying to get to this sign here and see if I can get to it faster than I could with the vehicle. And oh my god, I was able to get to it faster than in the Trail Bruiser. And so that is why this vehicle is by far the worst in the game. So now that we've clawed our way through the worst vehicles in the game, we can finally look at what I consider to be the 5 best vehicles in Cyberpunk 2077. And we're going to do it exactly the same way. We're going to start off with what I consider to be the 5th best, and then last but not least, we will mention the best overall vehicle, again, according to me. So in the 5th place, we have Jackie's Tuned Arch. This is of course a motorcycle. It's the only motorcycle in this list, so therefore I also consider this to be the best motorcycle in the game. The thing about motorcycles is that they have the unique let's say advantage that they really allow you to sort of like weave in traffic in between vehicles and stuff like that. So especially certain, let's say, inner city parts of Night City can get quite congested with vehicles and stuff like that, sort of like hanging around, and that can sometimes be difficult to fit a car through, and you're going to be hitting a bunch of stuff and you're going to attract police attention and this and that. Like motorcycles completely avoid that situation from happening, and this motorcycle is the best one of the bunch. It has really good acceleration, great top speed, and it actually handles like an absolute dream. The only thing that would make this better is if this thing could pop out like machine guns and some rockets, but unfortunately that's not the case. But that's why this thing is in 5th place, because it is absolutely awesome. 4th place belongs to the Sport R7 Vigilante. And I believe this is a pre-order bonus. If you buy or if you bought Phantom Liberty, this would be basically waiting for you the minute you came into the DLC. So you basically get a message and said that the car has been delivered to you. But there is also a way to actually earn this in-game, so it's not hashtag pay to win or anything like that. But this thing's got ridiculously good acceleration, handles pretty damn good, coupled with the fact that it looks awesome. And yeah, it's just got a really good sound to it as well. This is one of my favorite vehicles to drive around in. I like the whole idea of like the engine kind of like sticking out. Now this does not have any guns or rockets in it, so there's no vehicle to vehicle combat to be had with this, but it kind of makes up for that with attitude. Like this thing really does fly. It's got a great top speed, and it handles pretty good for considering how much horsepower this thing is pushing out. So absolutely, I recommend this vehicle. It's in fire red, so that means it goes fast, right? So definitely get yourself this. As we break into the top 3 now, number 3 is the Erudite Guinevere. This is an odd looking vehicle. It kind of like looks like a fancy man's shoe with a ridiculous engine in front. But all in all, I mean, what this car does in terms of making up for its odd looks, it's got a great interior, but Jesus Christ, does this thing have acceleration on its side. Now, it's slightly heavy on the turning because of the fact that the vehicle is kind of like long, right? It's got some length on it, but because it has so much horsepower, because it drives so fast, it really grips the road very well. And even if you slide out on turns, you use a handbrake, anything like that, you recover control of the vehicle like super fast. Again, unfortunately, not something with guns or rockets. This would kind of like be the one that you show off, or rather show up to show off in. But holy shit, this thing is fast. It's the 2nd fastest vehicle in the game in terms of measuring its speed. And yeah, again, really awesome that it has fantastic handling to boot with that. And it's by far the most futuristic looking, oh my god, I just did a torpedo, looking vehicle of the bunch. So absolutely pick this up. I think it might also be the most expensive vehicle in the entire shop, so that's of course something to bear in mind as well. In 2nd place, and just losing to the car that I have in top spot, is the Caliburn, or the Rayfield Caliburn if you're an asshole. Of course, there's 2 versions of this vehicle in the game. There's this one that you're looking at right now, which is the one that you actually buy in the shop. And then of course there's the completely black one, which you can actually get for free by essentially finishing the missions up into a certain point in the game with Pan Am, and then looking for some tunnels kind of like outside here in the Badlands, and you can find it in a container. There's a video on my channel if you're looking to get that. Go ahead and check that out. This is by far the fastest vehicle in the game. It's got the fastest acceleration, and it's got the fastest top speed. It's got insane handling to boot. I did test both of these versions. You can own both. You can get the free one and the bought one. Both of them drive exactly the same. They have the same top speed, same acceleration, everything. So literally it just comes down to picking which color you like. If you like the all black, or if you like this like sort of rose gold tint finished one. But either which way, whichever one of the 2 you choose, you are picking something which gets you from A to B super fucking fast, looks really snazzy, and unfortunately, while it does not have guns and rockets and stuff on it, you can lean out the side of this thing and shoot people in the face, and you'll look cool while you're doing it. So absolutely, Caliburn, fastest vehicle in the game, bar none. And then without any further ado, we have, in my opinion, the best vehicle in the game, and that is the Quartz Sidewinder. Now, this might not look very impressive. I'll be the first one to admit that. However, this car has exactly the same top speed almost as the Caliburn. It does not have the same acceleration, but reaches the same distance that the Caliburn reaches in 1 second slower. So it has that same insane speed that the Caliburn has, but now because it's also a smaller car and a little bit more nimble, it's a lot easier to control. It's a little bit slidey, which is kind of cute, but the actual benefit that this vehicle has is it's completely kitted out with some guns as well as some rockets. So this is your all-in-one solution for when you want to do some vehicle-to-vehicle combat, but you also want to have the fastest car on the block. Well, sorry, the second fastest car on the block with really, really, really good handling. So this is equally good in the city itself, and you can actually drive this quite nicely in the Badlands as well, because it's kind of like made for that. It's kind of like made for these hills outside and just causing havoc with this stuff. This is, in my opinion, the best handling vehicle in the game, and as mentioned, overall this thing wins for me hands down. Funnily enough, it's also not even nearly that expensive, so it's absolutely cheap to pick up and just an absolute dream to drive around and cause a huge amount of shit with. As I goof around in the background here with the cops with the Quad Sidewinder, I do want to flash the entire list of all of the vehicles that I tested, so you guys can kind of like see all of the results. If there's a vehicle that you're wondering about that I of course didn't mention, of course there's a whole bunch of cars in the game, so it's entirely possible that you have a favorite which I kind of snubbed or, you know, did not give the love that you wanted me to give it, but at least you'll have that information available to you as well, and you can kind of like figure out whether you want to pick up that vehicle or not. And that's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it this far. As mentioned at the beginning of this video, this was kind of like a tangent idea I had one night, and I was like, let me test all the vehicles and see if there's some really broken shit in here that I have never driven. The short answer is there's not really anything broken per se, but there are some vehicles which are clearly better than others, and hopefully I illustrated that in this video. It's entirely possible that a lot of players will go through the entirety of Cyberpunk 2077 without ever buying new vehicles and just keeping and driving the stuff that they're given to for free by the game. But I think it's pretty awesome that we do have so many options to drive, whether it's a motorcycle, you know, a normal vehicle, something with guns, something that looks like a coffin, you know, whatever you feel like driving. Let me know in the comments down below what is your favorite vehicle and which one you're upset with me for skipping, which one you think, you know, people are sleeping on. I did test all of them, and a lot of them drive very similarly, so in a way you have a lot of stuff that sits right in the middle of the pack and kind of like is indiscernible from each other, depending on, you know, the only thing being like what it looks like. And that's kind of like the point that I was also trying to make at the beginning of the video. If you enjoy this content, give this video a like and consider subbing to the channel. I bring content like this as well as all kinds of other stuff for a whole bunch of games. This is a variety channel, so it's entirely likely I'm going to be dealing with a game that you enjoy sooner or later, and I'd love to hear your input on what I can bring to the channel specifically around those games. Other than that, it's just super important to me that you have a fantastic morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Till next video, fucking cheers.